We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday by the time you hear this. We're recording it in the afternoon of Friday. And as so often the case, on this particular day, we have our guest, Ed, with us. I know everybody's anxious to hear from Ed. He's kind of the elder statesman here. He knows a lot more than we do because he's lived longer.
So,
He's lived
yeah,
through history. When you want to know about Abraham Lincoln, he went to fucking school with him. So we can get the straight answers from Ed. Ed, welcome back. You're still down in Tennessee at this point. You were
yeah,
saying before you're kind of like living in a rainforest, so that must be fun.
yeah. It's like Panama this time of year. Wasn't this way when I was a kid, but now it's, the 90s are pretty much what we get, and a lot of humidity on top of that. So, being outside is not something you want to do much unless you're in the shade with a fan going, or if you're inside with the AC. I don't know what people without AC do. I guess they sweat a lot. That's what I
Yeah.
did when I was a kid because we didn't have it. Nobody did really. But I'm used to it now. I like my creature comforts, and um,
Well, and,
it's
and, and
it.
frankly, being really hot and sweaty is a little less appealing when you're in your 70s as opposed to when you're seven.
That's it. You don't really notice it then. You just keep on trucking. You don't. Uh, so what? It's hot. It's cold. Whatever. I got to get things. I got to have fun. That's what it comes
Yeah.
down to when you're seven. But when you're 71, 75, in my case, yeah, you're going to bitch a lot,
You're
complain.
definitely going to bitch a lot. Now, um, of course, we have to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, this whole thing.
Sure.
In the scheme of news stories and such, it's really kind of minimal. It's kind of a stupid story. And when I say that, people say, "Well, you're just discounting what uh, Epstein did." Epstein was a monster. What he
Yeah.
did was absolutely horrific. Now it's just a matter of people trying to tie Donald Trump to Epstein, which is crazy because we know they were best friends. We knew they hung out. There's video of the fucking shit. But Donald Trump's getting this heat from Epstein, and he's acting totally different. He's not doing the things he used to do, mainly because it's not just the Democrats pushing him; it's his own people, and he's really doesn't know what to do with this situation.
Yeah, he's calling his own people stupid. He's pushing lies that everybody knows. Well, that's not what you said, a year ago.
Yeah,
We have the video, we have the audio of him saying what a great guy Jeffrey Epstein was and how much fun he is to be with. We also have testimony, reliable testimony from young girls who were victimized not only by Epstein but directly by Trump. And then we have all of that information. We have all of those files, and that's just release them. Let them go. I don't care who else is in there. I know I'm not. I know you're not. Anybody else who is tainted by that, let the chips fall where they may. Democrat, Republican, Independent, I don't care. Right? They should
yeah.
have been charged long ago. And
Well, that's the point. One of the excuses they say is, well, if we release this, there'll be some people that were accused that may be innocent. We don't want to do that. And I'm thinking this happened years ago, 15 plus years ago. Why aren't the people in these documents investigated and or prosecuted? That's
yeah,
the real question. We're afraid to expose them because they're presumed innocent, but they have had no investigations and no prosecution of any of these people. So we should let people know. The one thing they should do, though, is redact the victims' names. We don't need to put them through that shit
no.
again.
No, absolutely. I mean, the so far it's pretty telling that the only person who has been held accountable in all of this, in which primarily a lot of very connected, apparently wealthy white males were involved in having sex with very young women, and for money or whatever. And the only person who's been held accountable is a woman. Who's
Absolutely.
and what is she in jail for if there's nothing there? right?
Well, that's exactly it. And I don't want to discount Ghislaine Maxwell. She
Yeah.
is supremely guilty. She was
Yes.
recruiting and she was an accessory to all this. She made some of this happen. So she belongs in jail. She
Absolutely.
definitely belongs in jail. But there are so many other people that are just as guilty or more guilty, and nothing has been done. Hell, Jeffrey Epstein, the first time he got arrested, he got far less than what Ghislaine Maxwell is dealing with right now. He got a fucking sweetheart deal.
Yes, exactly. And who gave him that deal? I forget right at the moment, but it's somebody whose name you would know. Um,
He looks like a skinny cousin to Ted Cruz. His name is
yeah,
Acosta, I believe. He
that's
was
him. Jim
a
Acosta,
he,
I think. No, not Jim Acosta. That's a different guy. But
yeah.
yeah, you're right. Mhm.
And he was a judge or a lawyer at the time and gave him this deal. He was sexually sex trafficking young girls, and they pled it down to a solicitation. They
Yeah,
sent him to jail during the day or during the night, and he got to get out every day to work. So they basically said, you can sex traffic women and you're rich, so we're not going to do anything to you. Ghislaine
e-
Maxwell goes to jail for 20 years.
exactly. And those charges, she was tried. She got her day in court. She was found guilty. But what I'm essentially saying is she was held accountable for something. Jeffrey Epstein was guilty of something. He's dead, but those charges are still there. There were people who went there to exploit these young girls. They are part of the problem. They need to be held
Exactly.
accountable.
Well, and it's the thing about it is what's going on now with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. There is no claims of illegalities. There probably was. Donald Trump is
Yeah.
probably complicit in this whole thing, but that's not what's being talked about. There's no revealed evidence of Donald Trump. Well, there is revealed evidence of Donald Trump involved with underage women. But this particular situation is just making the connection between Donald Trump and Epstein. And this is the worst thing that can happen to Donald Trump because over and above being convicted of felonies, embarrassing him, making him look wrong, you can see he's spinning out of control because of this. And he's trying to do everything to divert, distract, and do all this shit, but nothing's working because his own people hate him for it.
But one thing we have to point out too is that every Republican in both the Senate and House voted not to release the files.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, in the middle of the night, voted not to release the files. Every Republican. I'm not sure. I think there were two in the Senate, the usual suspects, the two
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
who joined Democrats in voting for it, but of course they still didn't have the numbers, so those they voted not to do that. Now, uh, um, say her name for me. Is it Ghislaine?
Elaine Maxwell.
Yeah, Ghislaine has said she will testify to Congress if they call her. She will do it. So all they have to do is bring her in, and she will tell them exactly what they need to know. But they won't do it because she would tell the truth. It would implicate Trump, and their house of cards would start to fall.
Or she would have a mysterious suicide.
But yeah, well,
That's what
there's
I'd be
that too.
concerned about.
Speaking of
Yeah.
which, now that 1 minute glitch that was supposedly some sort of thing where they changed tapes or whatever has now 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Yeah.
Mhm.
The thing about it is they say, well, it was just a glitch. Um, why would it be that one particular uh, piece of video has a 3 minute piece cut out of it? I mean, that certainly is suspicious. And if it were the Democrats who did it, the Republicans would be screaming like a stuck pig. This is part and parcel to what Donald Trump does. He tries to game situations. He likes to prove people wrong, even if he has to cheat to do it. So it wouldn't be surprising if that whole thing's been altered. And it really didn't show anything at all. And if there's 3 minutes missing, you have to assume the worst.
Exactly. And apparently, the last I heard was it's not even one seamless piece of video with a piece taken out. It's actually two different ones put together using a fairly standard editing program. Adobe Premiere, I think. Um, it's actually two stitched together pieces of video, not one long one that has a little bit taken out. So there's much to be seen there. There's much to be answered for there. So I'm hoping they can keep this alive just to watch him squirm because, oh, it's boring. Nobody cares. It was years ago. I never liked the guy, even though he says he loves him. I
Yeah.
mean, we've got the video, we've got the statements and stuff. He's a really fun guy to be with. He's one of my best friends for 15 years, yada, yada, yada.
He likes beautiful women like I do, and he likes them on the inside. So do you,
Yeah,
Donnie.
yeah.
Yeah, the whole this is so typical of Donald Trump. Anytime somebody um, close to him does something wrong or gets bad publicity, well, I don't know much. I don't know anything about it. He does know Jeffrey Epstein. Not only Jeffrey Epstein said he was a friend of his for 10 years, best friends, other people can vouch for that fact. And it just drives Donald Trump nuts that he can't spin out of this fucking thing. And I think it's really has to do with if we're just Democrats going after him, he would just do what he always does. But this is really getting under his skin with the Republicans and the MAGA people getting so pissed off. It's his own fault. This is what Donald Trump does. He doesn't think ahead. He doesn't plan ahead. He saw an opportunity with the Epstein thing going into the election. He says, "Yeah, I'm all over that. We're going to do that. We're going to do that." But when he gets into the position, he says, "Yeah, no, we're not going to do that." You don't do that to my dad used to do that as a narcissist. Oh, we're going to take you to this amusement park. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. And then at the last minute, shit, I got to work. I mean, it happened all the time. Disappointing people is part and parcel to what narcissists do. But in this case, these people were bought in to this whole pedophile ring thing, and they thought they were going to expose the Democrats. And what Donald Trump is telling them now is there's nothing here, and they're
Mhm.
mad about it, and they're going to stay mad about it.
Exactly. And he is wielding his power. And you have to assume that some of it, he recently, I think he was talking about Rand Paul, where he did him a really big favor to get his vote. That's called bribery, people. And he came right out and said it.
Yeah.
He works his magic with these people, and so he tells them to defund public radio and television. So they do in the middle of the night again. Nothing they do can withstand the light of day. Um, and that this, I spent a good portion of my life involved with public radio, so this really pisses me off.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. You and I both worked with public radio for a long time, and there was always this threat that they're going to defund public radio and public television. They never really did it fully, but now it sounds like that's what's going to happen. What does that mean to public broadcasting, and why is it important to the general public? Because a lot of people don't listen to public radio or public television.
Well, to be honest with you, the station we work for and stations like that, some of them, it probably won't make that much difference because number one, radio never got that big a piece of the pie. It was mostly
Right.
went to public television for programs like Sesame Street and the different news programs, Lair and so forth, that kind of thing. For the big public TV stations and the ones that produce programs and so forth, that will make a huge difference. But for stations like ours, who got, I think we got something like 15 grand a year and an equipment grant or something like that. And it wasn't that much to begin with. And we depended on listeners and underwriting from businesses. So it really, it might cost them one position or something like that, if that. The bigger the station, the more they're going to feel it. Okay. Now, we've always heard the thing, why should coal miners in Kentucky pay for public radio and television? Which, of course, they don't. It's such an infinitesimal bit of tax money from each individual that it's ridiculous to make that argument. But there are things that you see that you get from public television, that you get from public radio, that commercial radio just and television won't touch. Good example. I will give you right now. Stephen Colbert has been notified that his program will go away in a year from now, roughly. I think it's in May, actually,
20,
when his
May 2026. Yeah.
yeah, when his contract is up and so forth. It's not just that Stephen Colbert is being canceled; the whole late night program is being canceled. They call it a financial decision, but it just so happens that CBS, which is owned by Paramount, which is trying to buy Skydance Movie Studio for $8 billion, and is being held up by the FCC, which is controlled by Donald Trump. Now, CBS already capitulated and paid Trump $16 million for supposedly misediting a Kamala Harris interview on 60 Minutes. They should have fought that out. They would have won. But no,
Yeah.
they thought they'd mollified him and they give him $16 million. And now he has said, well, that's not enough. I want you to get rid of Colbert. I mean, nobody will admit that at all. Nobody will ever say that that's the case, but that's exactly what's happening. This morning, my wife canceled our subscription to Paramount Plus because, quite frankly, that's the only thing we watch
Yeah.
on Paramount Plus. And she told them why, that they were knuckling under to a fascist administration. And it's true. So, everyone, I encourage you to do the same.
Well, and I think the reason I'm sure Donald Trump went to CBS and said, listen, you're not going to get a merger unless you fire Colbert. And Colbert gave them the opportunity to do that, even
Yeah,
though they aren't using it as an excuse. He basically called out his own network, his own bosses for capitulating to Donald Trump. And everybody was going, oh my God, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that?
mhm.
Because frankly, at this point, Colbert is bigger than CBS and more
Absolutely.
credible than CBS.
Yeah, if he does, I mean, he can do a podcast. I think he already does, as a matter of fact. But he will catch on somewhere else in some other capacity and so forth. As you say, he was the leading late night host, so their financial decision makes no sense in any way. But what this really comes down to is that the media is pretty much compromised, and the reason they're compromised is because of things like this. Anytime a corporation is involved and mergers and so forth is involved, then the truth is going to suffer. The service provided is going to suffer. Corporations are evil. They must be destroyed. We did it once, we can do it again. This is what Teddy Roosevelt was all about, busting up the trusts and so forth, that and the monopolies and so forth. And we're right back there. This is what's going on with the media. They are monopolies. They're into everything. You know, they're the parent company owns everything from electric companies to car companies to grocery stores, and over here they have a movie studio or a TV a network or something like that. And it's always going to be, they're always going to go to the bottom line. Whatever they
Yeah.
think that they can make the most money at, then that's what they will do. Corporations are evil. They have no soul. They are not people. Destroy them.
Absolutely. And if you're worried about Colbert, don't be worried about him. He's worth like 75 to $100 million. And
Exactly.
somebody came to me with a likely possibility for his next landing spot. They said HBO should fire Bill Maher and put in Colbert
I'd
because
go for that.
people are tired of Bill Maher. He flip flops. He's weird. I'm not a fan of Bill Maher, even if he's talking my language and talking about the things I want to talk about. Because 2 minutes later, he's going to say, I had lunch with Donald Trump. He's a good guy. Fuck you. You can't do that.
No. No, and that's where he lost me, by the way. Actually, not that I fault him for doing it, but for him reporting in a way that, like you just said, that he's not the way that he comes across in media. Bullshit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, he could be a goddamn saint off the, and I don't care because what he's doing is evil, right?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you don't get evil from a good guy. You don't.
No, you don't. And, Colbert, honestly, the way it's been going, how some people are leaving mainstream media and going on YouTube and some other social media platforms. Colbert could go on YouTube and bring
Yeah,
on guests that he knows. He could get more viewers on YouTube than he ever had on fucking CBS just
yeah,
because people are moving away from the mainstream media.
exactly. They won't exist in 10 years.
No.
I, I mean, it's like when I was a kid, radio was king, okay, and it was AM radio that was
Right.
king, and then that faded because of music quality, and FM became king. But radio, who listens to the radio anymore?
Yeah.
Really, hardly
Who
anyone.
watches network television? I don't watch network television.
I do not. I can't think the last time. Well, that's why we had Paramount, so we could get to Colbert. The we watch some local news. Less and less likely to do that anymore because we watch it because it's tainted here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very tainted. Sinclair and other right wing organizations on all the radio and TV stations and newspapers. So um, there's no truth in local media here. I don't know that that's the case everywhere, but here it certainly is. So um, we watch it for weather and that sort of thing, maybe. But I get better weather on my phone than I get on TV anyway. you know.
Yeah. No, no shit. You were talking about uh, defunding uh, public radio and public
Right.
television. I know at least on radio, like you said, the radio station we worked on only got like $15,000, and if they
Yeah.
took a $15,000 hit, our radio station could easily handle that by pushing out an older fucking employee who's making more money.
Like
Not
you
that
and
that
me.
happened, like you and me, exactly, and a couple other people.
yeah.
And if there's anybody from that station listening, you know it's fucking true. And it's
Yeah.
funny, the guy who was the manager that I was dealing with, I happened to look at their website recently because somebody asked me a question. That guy's not even in management anymore. He's doing like afternoon drive, which is weird because the only thing that he's worse at than being a manager is being on the fucking air.
Boy, that happened quick. I wasn't aware of that. Hmm.
Well, unless I'm wrong, but he doesn't show up in the management listing. He's just doing his afternoon show. His guy had no fucking talent, and I guarantee you that motherfucker is a Trump humper.
I would
Guarantee
bet.
you.
Yeah. I have no idea, but um, what's the way? There are indications, certainly.
There are
You know.
indications. He was one of those law enforcement wannabes, you know.
Yeah. There's
I'm a
that.
tough guy.
Mhm.
Yeah, my wife brings it up every so often because after I retired after that whole situation, she and I are sitting in a Rusty Taco is what they used to call it. I don't
Yeah.
even know if they're still around, but we're sitting in a Rusty Taco, and it's probably 6, 8 months, maybe a year after I retired and went through the whole shit with my manager, and I gave him shit, and I just said fuck you. I'm sitting there, and he and his very pregnant wife walk up to the table. They happen to be in the place, and he goes, "Hi, Mike," and my wife says, "I've never seen a mean look on your face like that before. And I'm married to you. I've never seen that." And I look at him and I go, "What the fuck do you want? I'm trying to have dinner here, you piece of shit." And my wife is going, "Shit," but she knows how this all went down. And he just kind of looked at me and shuffled away. And I haven't heard from him since, not surprisingly. Anyway,
Yeah.
we don't have to go off on those personal tangents. I do that from
No.
time to time. But
Mhm.
you're right about the media. The media is changing very quickly. Um, it's hard to, I mean, CBS is a good example. When we were growing up, 60 Minutes was absolutely a bastion of journalism.
Yeah.
Was a
Paragon.
place you could, you could guarantee that it was going to be the truth and they were going to ask the hard questions. And now I wouldn't listen to 60 Minutes now because I can't trust them.
I haven't watched in years, to be honest with you. I have not. The I watch the Sunday morning show, CBS Sunday Morning. I do watch
Okay.
that, but that's more of a magazine, you know.
Yeah. That's
And
with Jane Pauley still.
yeah, right. And I do enjoy that. They may be on hiatus now. I forget. They usually do in the summertime and do reruns. But at any rate, I do watch that pretty regularly. But I don't watch much network television, period. And the reason it's not just TV that I am kind of down on. I'm also down on pretty much the entertainment industry, period, because number one, it's gotten very exclusive. My wife and I were just talking about this. I don't know what poor people watch because how can you afford um, to have cable or dish or whatever? It's through the roof. I mean,
Yeah.
between streaming and Wi-Fi and everything else to try to stay connected, it costs a pretty penny. I guess you could have an antenna and listen to broadcast TV. And I know some people do that. Some people get it through cable or whatever. But
The
at any
digital.
rate, or yeah. Um, but I look at movies, for example, and they seem to be kind of everybody is a producer. Do you notice that now that no matter what it is, every actor in it and down to the janitor is a producer or something. So there's all this stuff is just stuck together. I saw a movie with Brad Pitt and George Clooney. That now these are two of our premier actors. These are two very talented people, and it was an awful movie. It's like they did it in an afternoon and they improvised it, and there was no real substance to it at all. And I'm going, this is the best we can offer. Um, I haven't been tempted to go see a movie in a year. I probably will go see Superman.
Yeah.
Sounds like something that I would like because it's woke. It's woke as hell, and I like it.
I will say this: my wife and I, from time to time, will go see a movie during the day because we're retired and we don't have a lot going on. So sometimes we'll go see a movie. And recently, this was last week, we went and saw a movie down Eden Prairie at the mall, and it was F1 with Brad Pitt. And I
Uh-huh.
will say it was a pretty good movie.
Okay,
And
that's
before
the
that,
race car deal, right?
it's a race car deal. And before that, we saw The Amateur with Rami Malek and I can't remember
Hmm.
who else is in it. That was a good movie. That was a decent movie. I mean, I wouldn't say they're great movies, but I was entertained and I walked out and I didn't feel like I got ripped off. But going into that movie, for my wife and I to get two tickets, one big thing of popcorn, one pop that we shared because that was the
Yeah,
deal, pop and a popcorn, it
yeah,
was $45.
yeah.
Now, now, I can afford that from time to time, but I don't know how normal people can do that when you got four kids or two kids and all the bills and all the things. I pretty much cut down my lifestyle to the bare minimum. I don't have
Yeah.
a real lavish lifestyle, but how do you continue in a business when you're putting out product that most people can't afford?
That boggles my mind. As you say, that would be the same thing for us. If we went to the movies, it would come in right at $50, right?
Yeah.
And I have to indulge me, people. I'm an old guy. I've been around for a while, but when I went to the movies as a kid, I paid 15 cents.
Yeah.
And then I got popcorn, and my father and mother would give me a quarter to get a bag of popcorn and a Coke, and they were good size. So
We 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 do have to say this. You did go see those movies for 15 cent. They were silent movies. So that's probably why they were cheaper. But
probably, yeah.
well,
Mhm.
we had a neighborhood theater that showed a little bit older films. You know, they'd been out for a little bit, and it was a buck to get in. My wife and I
Yeah.
used to go to those buck movies all
Oh,
the
so
time.
die. Yeah, I
The
know the theater
Riverview,
you're talking about. Yeah, and it's still there, by the way.
it is. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, we go in there from time to time. It's not a buck anymore, but
No.
it's kind of cool because it's very retro, very 60s type feel. Popcorn's really good, and it's just a comfortable place to go. Uh, and they're trying real hard to get more people to go to movies, but the real way to do it is make it affordable.
Yes. It's that simple. Now, of course, I know because I knew the lady who ran the theater. When I was in high school, I worked in a grocery store, and near the theater, and she would come in there, and I would carry her groceries home. And she told me flat out, I don't make anything on the movies. The only money I make is on concessions.
Right.
Because I have to pay for the movie, and sometimes I run a movie that 10 people come. I don't pay for the movie. I pay for, if they spend $10 at the concession stand, then those 10 people, maybe I can, even out. But, she was wondering if she'd be able to keep it open just for that reason, and so they ran on Saturday, they'd run older movies and cartoons for kids, and they'd fill the place, so that's how they kept the theater open, was pretty much on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back to the Epstein thing
Yeah,
because that kind of ties into the entertainment business. A lot of people think that this hush hush, this covering for these Jeffrey Epstein files is all about Donald Trump. And I don't think it is. I mean, I think Donald Trump is a big part of it and he's going to be embarrassed when it comes out. But there are so many wealthy, prominent, powerful people that can be tied to these lists, stuff we've already seen. I got to think the pressure on the DOJ and even on Donald Trump is pretty heavy to keep that fucker out of the spotlight because it would destroy a lot of people. Even just the association with Jeffrey Epstein, even if they don't find any particular crimes they committed, you'd have to presume if you're going to Epstein's Island, you're not going there for the scenery, at least natural scenery.
right. Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. Some of the people that have admitted it, RFK Jr. has said he was on the plane twice, claimed his wife was with him. I don't know. I understand Bill Gates, that had something to do with his divorce, that he was associated with Jeffrey Epstein, flew on the plane. Um, we know that Trump was on it a lot. Um, People say there's no client list. Okay, maybe there's not. I don't know. But there's plane logs. We know who's been on the plane. We know who's been associated with him. And that's association is not necessarily guilt, but I mean, it's if you're hanging out with these people, we should know that. If
Well,
you're if you're a president, if you're in the Senate or the House or a Supreme Court justice, who my mom used to say, people are going to judge you by who you hang out with. So I
right,
don't want
right,
you hanging
exactly.
out with so and so, and it's true, they do.
Now, when Pam Bondi and Donald Trump said there is no list, I almost get the feeling they were playing some kind of game, some kind of semantics game, because I doubt there was a list per se that would be too dangerous to do that. But we know there are terabytes and terabytes of evidence. And
Yes.
in that evidence, those names come up. You don't need a list. You just need the evidence that we know exists. I mean, there's all kinds of things that the DOJ has, even though they say they have nothing, that they aren't revealing to us. Like this letter that came from Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein that was in the Wall Street Journal. I hope your days are full of wonderful secrets and all this creepy cryptic stuff he wrote to him. It was really weird. And he drew a picture of a naked woman around it. He goes, "That's fake. I never draw pictures." Well, he forgot that he's got quite a bit of doodles that he sold
Yeah.
prior to this. So he does doodle a little bit. Um, but Pam Bondi had that book, that letters with the letters in it. She has it.
Hmm.
The other thing Pam Bondi no doubt has, there's a senator from Oregon. His name is Ron Wyden, and
Yes.
he spent 3 years doing an investigation about following the money with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Jeffrey Epstein claimed to be a financier, but there's never any evidence that he did
No.
anything. How did he make his money? Well, what we do know from what this investigation has showed that there were four banks involved and $1.5 billion being moved around. And there was a lot of money coming from oligarchs, maybe as much as one payment for $100 million. There was a lot of strange stuff in that. Donald Trump and the Trump administration have that documentation. They could release it. It doesn't necessarily tell people that they were having sex with underage girls, but it shows who's funneling money to Jeffrey Epstein. That would be an easy thing to fucking release.
Yeah, and they should do that. There will be pressure, but the fact that the Republicans in the Senate and in the House voted not to release the files is telling. If it had been Biden, it would have been unanimous the other way. We know that.
Do you think it's they're not wanting to release it just to appease Donald Trump, or are they too afraid of what's in it, or a
I think they're
combination?
a combination. I think primarily it's because they're afraid that it will affect Trump, which will affect the midterms, which will affect their power in the Senate and the House. But I'm sure that a number of them are probably implicated.
Yeah.
Who's the brow? The guy who they were investigating for having this inappropriate
Matt
relationship.
Matt
Pardon?
Gates.
Matt
Matt
Gates.
Gates.
You know, he just put out a thing the other day that said, you know, basically having sex with young girls is what every guy wants to do. So there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not
Oh,
quoting him exactly, but that was pretty much what he said. So yeah, there are plenty of Republicans who are. We all know when they have a when they have a Republican convention, no matter where it is, the prostitutes all work, and that's male and female, and grinder
right.
crashes. So we know that. We also know
Yeah.
that the Bible Belt is the porn belt and the divorce belt and all of that. It's the appearance of sin they hate, not the sin itself. And I'm
Right.
not into sin per se, but I'm just saying they are, and that's why they're hypocrites.
I kind of believe that their attitude is it's not sin if you don't get caught.
That's pretty
That
much it. Mm-hmm.
that's yeah,
The
that's
only sin is getting caught.
right. Right. Let me ask you this though. I personally don't think anything of any substance will get out while Donald Trump is in office. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think it's a good thing that this constant barrage of Jeffrey Epstein is a good thing, whether we see anything or not, because it's going to damage Donald Trump and make him further go out of control. But when Donald Trump's out of office, MAGA is no longer in power. Do you think those documents end up seeing the light of day?
Possibly. It really depends on who's implicated. I mean, I've got to say it. There are probably some Democrats in there, and I could
Yeah.
probably figure out who. But at the same time, I'm going to say this. I'm going to throw this in here. I don't think it matters because from what I've seen lately and what they're admitting health wise lately, I don't think Donald Trump's going to be with us by November. That's my prediction. You can hold me to it. I don't think Donald Trump will be with us in November.
Well, that's a good point. This is another thing that Donald Trump is doing that's different. You know, he's trying to prove wrong all these theories that are coming out instead of just diverting and moving on to the next thing. He feels pressure enough to push back. Now, people just looking at him said, he's got all these bruises on his hands. And then they show his ankles and they're just blown up. It seems familiar to me, even though I didn't really see him much before he died. My father had this edema and some heart issues, and your legs swell up. And the bruising can either be blood thinners or he's getting IVs, something like that. I don't know which. It doesn't really matter. But they come out and they say he's got these uh, v- venous deficiencies. And
Yeah.
at first I thought they said penis deficiencies. And I thought, yeah, that figures. But they said venous deficiencies. And what I've read about this is he may have that, but that is only a symptom of a bigger problem.
Yeah, well, his mental faculties, I don't know. I mean, he's always been a liar. We know that. But then the other day, yesterday or the day before, he starts talking about his uncle who was at MIT, the longest serving professor at MIT, which is a lie, and that he had degrees in, as he says, nuclear and electronics and math. Well, that's not exactly true. What he had, but at any rate, that he taught Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and that he told him about. Ted Kaczynski, and that he was always correcting people. Well, the funny thing is that his uncle John died like 10 years before the Unabomber was a thing, before he was unmasked. So they would have had no reason to talk about Ted Kaczynski. Nobody knew who he was, nor would his uncle have had any reason to reference him. So it's a blatant lie. And yet he tells it. He goes right along, and I'm sure he'll if somebody calls him on it, he'll say it again. And he seems to be very proud of the fact that he had this really intelligent uncle, and he
Good.
tries to imply that he must be intelligent too because he had an intelligent uncle, which is
Really.
basically stupid.
I had an uncle that was alcoholic, and I don't drink. So
Well, there
what
you
the fuck?
go.
But
But
but the other thing about Ted Kaczynski too, as I understand it, he never went to MIT anyway.
no, he went to Harvard or Yale, Harvard, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so
place
no,
Donald Trump couldn't get into.
exactly. The other thing about Trump, and this has been forever, he's very much into eugenics. The idea of the master race is what it comes down to. I mean, he's German after all, or at least part German. His dad was German. I guess his mother was Scottish. But at any
Yeah.
rate, he has this idea that he has these great genes because of his, background. And that's very much into the white supremacists, the eugenics, the whole Hitler thing, right? The master race thing. And this is very much a part of Donald Trump, and he reveals it all the time. And that alone should be cause for complete vilification and removal from office. Come on, people. I thought we were past that. Obviously, we weren't.
Yeah, that's what we need is a whole race of Donald Trump's people who paint their faces orange and shit their pants. That would be
Exactly.
the master fucking race, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump's making those kinds of mistakes, whether they're flat out lies and he knows he's lying or he just doesn't realize it, because he's continuing to talk to the public about firing um, Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
Right.
And I've told people before why he wants to fire him is because he thinks Jerome Powell should lower interest rates. And the reason he wants him to lower interest rates is because he fucked up the economy and he thinks this will supercharge it somehow, fix his fuck ups and make him look like a hero. Anybody with any brains says no, the opposite would happen. But Donald Trump's the
Exactly.
smartest guy in the room. So just do what I told you and see how that works out. Well, we're seeing how Donald Trump's reactionary decisions are working out. They always fail. But he made a comment. He said, I don't even know how Jerome Powell ever got appointed.
Yeah.
I don't know why Joe
Biden.
Biden appointed him and then re-upped him
Yeah,
because Donald Trump is the one that appointed him, and there's video of him showing him doing it.
exactly. Well, look at FIFA. Look what he did at FIFA. He won't get off the stage. He steals the trophy and he steals a medal. We watch him do it. We watch him fold it up and put it in his pocket. And of course, the players and Chelsea players are all up in arms about this, and so is the head of FIFA and so forth. He showed his ass to the world, and of
Yeah.
course he always does. But I mean, he's got the trophy in the Oval Office, and he's keeping it apparently. This
But
is
this
this
is
is
what
insanity.
this is what he does, though. I mean, he did the same thing with the Iran Israeli thing. He saw Israel was kind of getting the upper hand with Iran, and he said, "Oh, I got to be in the middle of that success, so I'm going to bomb the piss out of them, put an end to it, and be the hero." Didn't work out that way. But the same with FIFA. He saw the big crowd and the adulation, people on the stage. He had to be in the middle of it and
Yeah,
somehow gather some of that adulation. I think they booed him when he came in the
they
fucking
did.
stadium at first,
They did.
and he needed to redeem himself by being part of the happy crowd. This is what narcissists do. They try to get as much glory as they can, and if they have to steal it from somebody else, they'll fucking do it.
Yeah, and he literally stole it. I mean, arrest the guy. He stole it. We saw him
Yeah.
red-handed.
Yeah, it's really a mental illness that he has. I mean, he's always had the mental illness, but I think it's we're getting to the breaking point. He's he's feeling cornered, And when he feels cornered, he's going to flail and he's going to do crazy shit. That's why I like this Epstein thing. Everybody thinks, how are we going to take down Donald Trump? And we're not going to take down Donald Trump. The Republicans and MAGA will take him down, and at least we're on that right track. We can threaten him with court cases. We can do this. We can votes and all this. None of that matters. The most important thing you can do to Donald Trump is to expose and embarrass him, because that's the most devastating thing that Donald Trump has to deal with.
I agree with you 1,000%, but I must also say that sometimes I think just by concentrating on Donald Trump, we may be dropping the ball because
I agree.
we are at the culmination of a movement that started. I'm going to say with Reagan. It was actually before Reagan with the Powell memorandum saying, rich people have to start in taking back the country, which is essentially what it said. And then with Reagan and so forth, it's been a steady downhill march since then. To get back to the late 1800s, the Gilded Age, when a very few rich white men ran everything.
Right.
That's what's been going on, and we have reached. That's what Project 2025, which people forget, is ongoing.
Right.
Everything that's happening now is laid out in Project 2025, and it's getting power invested into the executive branch so that basically Congress and the court don't matter anymore, and that rich people run everything, that they don't pay taxes, we do, and everything, we get no benefit from the taxes we pay. Remember, taxation without representation is what this country got this country fired up to get started in the first place. But that's where we're coming back to. Taxation on us. We're not represented in Congress. We're not represented in the courts. We're not represented in the executive branch. They want our money, but they don't want us to benefit from it. Wake up, people. That is exactly what is happening.
Absolutely. That's what's happening. Donald Trump has said as much. We want to go back to the Gilded Age. It was a good time for rich people, but not for people like us.
Yeah.
The thing is that um, Donald Trump is failing at every step. He's trying to do things and it doesn't work. When we're looking at the tariffs, for example, he keeps going back and forth with the tariffs, and he's fucking with the economy when it's doing it's up, it's down, and that's not a good thing. Now he's pushing this tariff thing, and I'm convinced this tariff thing, when he fired that up again, was basically a distraction
Yeah.
from Jeffrey Epstein. This is the
Yeah.
one, Jeffrey Epstein is the one that's fucking with Donald Trump's head more than anything. He doesn't care if the tariffs fuck up the economy. He doesn't give a shit about that. And you would think the Republicans in the House and the Senate would be starting to realize this is working against us. Even if Jeffrey Epstein goes away, everything else is fucked up. But they're still standing next to him. And I'm hoping this Jeffrey Epstein thing is the point where they decide, yeah, I'm not dying on that hill. Because when it's all said and done, they're going to be confronted with the fact you stood by Donald Trump and now he's a pariah, and we hate you for that. But now they're at a point, as you pointed out, that they voted to hold back the Epstein files. Now they're at a point, and this is what the Democrats have to do. We have to attach them. You support pedophiles. You support sexual trafficking just by way of what you voted. And I think that's the one that's going to fucking geek these people out.
I hope that's the case. The MAGAs will never, ever admit they were wrong. They will never come around. They love Trump because of the cruelty. They love Trump because he is, quote, a strong leader, whatever. They think they're getting ripped off. They're not, but they think they're getting ripped off by immigrants and black people and poor people in general, when of course it is the rich who's ripping them off. But they're too stupid to know that, and they will never, ever realize that they're being played. They just won't. They do not have the capacity to do that. What we have to convince is the middle. And I think we're beginning to see that. I do think that evolution is part of it. I think there are people who have empathy and people who don't. And it's an evolutionary thing. and that those without it are going to die out over time. So we will win eventually, but right now we have to realize that this is the final push by the right wing to try to take over this country and make it an authoritarian dictatorship that caters to them. That is their goal. That's what it essentially was back in the late 1880s and so forth, in the Gilded Age. And I'll give you an example. Okay, we saw that Texas flood recently, right?
Right, right.
And okay, Trump did come in and give them money because it was Texas, and he loves Texas because they all support him, right? But he
Right.
ignored equally devastating tornadoes and floods and so forth in other parts of the country. He promised to come into North Carolina and help them out. He never did. FEMA was there when Biden was in. It was a big job. They were also working in Florida and other places, so it was taking some time. But it's terrible, terrible what they're doing, and he's going to come in and fix it. He hasn't done crap. Zero. People are still waiting there, but he goes to Texas because he likes Texas. He ignored California. He's not giving them anything, right? But back in 1926, it started raining in the summer, and it rained through the winter. And in 1927, we had this gigantic flood on the Mississippi. Calvin Coolidge was president when it started, right? And he was one of these hands-off guys, Republicans, who said, "No, we're not going to, people have to do it on their own." But he had Herbert Hoover, who was his commerce secretary, work with the Red Cross and local grassroots organizations and so forth to try to mitigate it. And they created these essentially concentration camps, right? Where they were feeding people to a degree and so forth. There's no government money involved in this. And the black people in particular were herded into these camps, and they were forced to work for free in exchange for the food and so forth they got there. Any white person could go in and get a couple of black guys and make them help him work on his farm or whatever. This went on, and that's why that black people in large groups fled to the north then and became Democrats, because they'd always been Republicans, because under Lincoln, the Republican Party had been anti-slavery, had been instrumental in getting them their freedom. So naturally, when they were freed, they became Republicans. But when they were forced into these camps, became essentially slave labor and so forth, then that changed. They moved to the north, they became Democrats, and that made sure that Hoover, who became president because of the work he had done, was ultimately defeated by Franklin Roosevelt. So we see what Republicans do, but that natural disaster, that flood, was the impetus for the northern migration of the black people that eventually turned the Democratic Party into a major force that elected Roosevelt, who then fixed a lot of the problems that Calvin Coolidge and Hoover did not. There's a history lesson for you.
Well, we appreciate that. I know people love hearing those history lessons.
Yeah. If you'd like to know
Well,
more, just Google Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, and you'll find
I'm
out
gonna.
much more.
I will. I will fucking do that. Absolutely. Um, the the thing about it is, you say Donald Trump gave Texas money because they're red, and I don't think it's just because they're red. Because Arkansas needed money and he didn't give them money. North Carolina is kind of purple and he
Yeah,
didn't give them money. I think Donald Trump just does what he does, whatever he thinks is advantageous to him.
I
Arkansas is
agree.
not big enough to make a difference to him, so fuck them.
I agree. I agree. And California, because he hates Gavin Newsom, and California in general, because it's blue, right?
Yeah. What
But
do you think
yeah,
about Gavin Newsom lately, though? I go back and forth on him. I don't like him. I do like him. And then I say, I don't really like him, but he's the one guy that's got the sense of how to attack the situation. He's
yeah,
going after him.
the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Which is, I don't see him as an enemy. Don't get me wrong, but there are things I like about him, things I don't like about him. But I agree with you. He's effective. He's
Yeah.
effective.
He was doing an interview and he was sitting back and he dropped the F bomb a couple times. And people go, oh my
Um,
God, that's offensive. You know what's offensive? putting citizens on a fucking plane and sending them to a horrible fucking jail. That's offensive. Actually, when I saw him do that, it made me feel better about him because I got a sense about who he really is as
Yeah.
opposed to the polished shit we always see.
Yeah.
I don't know that I think he's a great president, but I think people have to understand whoever the next president is isn't going to be everything everybody wants. Hopefully, it's just somebody who'll put us on the right path so we can ultimately get what we want. We've got to be able to give up a little to get out of this fucking mess. And I think people go into elections and say, I want my person to do all the things I want. And that's just not conceivable and certainly not going to help us get out of this fucking bullshit.
No, I agree. Anytime I see a one-sided Supreme Court decision or a one-sided bill passed in Congress, it makes me insanely angry because that's not the way it's supposed to work. Everything coming out of government needs to be a compromise. Democrats and Republicans, it used to be this way, by the way. Every bill used to have a Democratic and a Republican sponsor, McCain
Right.
Feingold or whatever. They came together, they hammered it out, and then they went to their parties and said, "This is what we want to do. We gotta get this through. We got to compromise here. They're compromising there, and that's what made America great." Um, in that everybody, well, I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to say we were great exactly. I'm just going to say it functioned much better, and that more people, the problems of more people were addressed that way because everybody had to give up something to get something. That's compromise. That's the way it's supposed to work. But for the last, I don't know, really since Reagan, it's been one way or the other. Either it depends on who's in power. They're forcing stuff through. They're not debating. And most of the people voting don't even know what's in the bill. That's very often the case. And then they come back afterwards and say, I didn't know that was in there. Well, it's your job to know. You've got staff. They can read it if you can't and tell you what's in the bill.
Well, we've got people, senators like Josh Hawley, who wasn't going to vote for the big beautiful bill, then votes for the big beautiful bill, and now he's out here saying, "Oh, we got to do something about this Medicaid stuff." You signed the motherfucker because
Yeah.
you were gutless and you bent to Donald Trump, and then now you know this is going to kill you because a lot of people in your state are going to suffer because of the bill you signed. Now you have to give the impression that you're trying to help them. He's not
Yeah.
going to be able to help them. I don't know that he can change this at this point, but it's
No.
all performative. I'm going to say, well, I'm fighting for your Medicaid. No, bitch, you signed the fucking bill.
Yeah, and that's what needs to be said. People need to point that out in every state. It's always a problem because people think their particular senator or congressman is an exception. So they continue to vote for them. Even they don't check up on them. They don't realize that they're as much a problem as anybody else. I mean, really, I'm not a big term limits guy, but I'm starting to be converted. If you've been there for 20 years and the problems still aren't solved, give somebody else a chance because you're not doing it.
Right.
And you're only working for your own benefit. You went in with a $50,000 at the bank, and now you're a multimillionaire. I know what you've been working on.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a story out, and I don't know how substantive it is, but there are some Republicans that are trying to push Donald Trump to dissolve the Supreme Court.
Oh,
Now,
I'm sure.
he, he's not going to be able to do that.
No.
It's an amendment and all this. He's not going to be able to do that. But I'm thinking to myself, what if they did? So what? I mean,
Mhm.
it's not any worse than it is now. At least Donald Trump couldn't be saved by the Supreme Court at some point after these federal judges made their calls. It's not going to happen. They're not going to dissolve the Supreme Court. But that's how egregious they are. They want to win at every cost, and they don't like it when somebody decides against them. And their answer to it is to dissolve the Supreme Court. There has to be a complete overhaul of Supreme Court once we get the opportunity because it's not working, it's not credible, it's not legitimate, it's not a Supreme Court. And if we don't have a Supreme Court in this country, the whole fucking structure of government is fucked.
That's right. Anytime that I mean, they have to find a way to remove the partisanship because that's all that's there now, is supreme partisanship, uh, is all. And I like to think that it won't be dissolved, but then I look that one of the biggest budget items was for ICE. And
Yeah,
so he is creating a private army. That's what ICE is. This is his Gestapo. There,
absolutely.
there is no reason to think anything else, and that scares me. It does because he can utilize them. I mean, a lot of them are probably the January 6th guys. We don't know. They're wearing masks. I've also heard he's imported some people from other countries
Right.
as well. Private contractors are involved in that. They have created this basically new army that is answers to no one but Donald Trump.
Right. Right. And I wonder about that.
No.
He's got like 170 million or billion put into this.
Yeah,
If things keeps going the way Donald Trump is going, and he becomes the pariah I expect him to be, and nobody has any respect for ICE. Who's going to want to be part of ICE? I mean, there's going to be some crazy fucks that do, but the vast majority of the people aren't going to want to get into something that is despised by everybody in this country. I don't know that he'll be able to build a huge army like he wants to, because, well, basically Donald Trump fucks up everything he does. He's got all these ideas, but they never pan out because he doesn't know how to implement them. I don't know about the ICE thing. It's the whole thing is troubling. I just don't know if he's going to be able to pull off what he wants.
the whole concept of ICE should be defunded and it should be gotten rid of and something else created or their duties given to other because they have become this secretive organization. They have become the Gestapo. That's what they are. And the whole concept of rounding up people and sending them to foreign prisons to countries where they didn't even come from. In
Right.
Libya, you're rounding up Hispanic people from South and Central America and you're sending them to a prison in Libya. What sense does that make, or wherever it may be? And let's face it, when you send people to concentration camps outside of the country, what is going to happen to those people? Are you going to keep them there forever? Who's paying for that? No. At some point, these will not be camps, and it may already be this case. I'm just putting it out there. It may already be the case that these are not camps to keep people in. These are camps to do away with people. We've seen it happen before, not just in Germany and other places too. And are we exempt? Are we exempt from that kind of evil? Of course we are not. We rounded up the Japanese in World War II, put them in internment camps, seized their property for which they were never compensated. We did that. We rounded up the Native Americans, put them on reservations, gave them smallpox, killed them off. We've been doing this for the whole history of our country. We enslaved black people. We kept them virtually enslaved through Jim Crow and through the flood, like I talked about. We have done this forever. So we
Yeah.
are not exempt. We're not this shining city on the hill. We're just as dirty, down and dirty as any other country when we're allowed, when the wrong element is allowed to have power. And that's what we have right now. The wrong element, a criminal element, is running this country, and they need to be taken out of office as quickly as we possibly can.
I think one of the most disappointing things about living in this country right now, everything Donald Trump does, people say, well, that's illegal.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he's still doing it.
Yeah,
What's that say? It says our Congress and our Department of Justice have zero teeth. They basically threatened people beforehand, and people capitulated because they were afraid of what might come. Donald Trump has proven nothing comes if you're just like a bull in a china shop and do whatever the fuck you want. He can't send people away without due process and send them to some foreign prison, but he's fucking doing it. I mean, what's that
exactly.
say about our country and our government? It almost seems like you got to burn the whole fucking government down and start over.
Exactly. What does it say when ICE comes to town and the local police and state troopers and everybody else assists them? Um, that is a capitulation as well.
Well, and the problem is they say, well, the federal government told us we got to do what the federal government tells us, and then they tell us, well, the military doesn't will never go against the Constitution. Well, that's bullshit. If you've got the head of the DOJ, the head of the Pentagon, and the president of the United States telling you to do something, what do you do? I mean, theoretically, you're not supposed to go against the Constitution, but when the bosses are there telling you you must do it, it's a quandary. And most people will pick the easiest road to travel, and that's to do what your bosses tell you.
Well, we have Marines in LA.
Yeah.
We have the U.S. Marines in LA. In LA,
And what the fuck are they doing?
that should be illegal. They're supposedly protecting ICE. You know, these guys have automatic weapons and body armor, and they're running around doing anything they want to do. But they got to protect ICE from the college students and suburban wives are out there protesting. You know, oh yeah, they really are in fear of their lives for sure. It's illegal for them to be there.
Well,
They
and that's the thing.
the
He put 4,000 National Guard there. They just
yeah.
pulled out 2,000. He's got 600 or 800 Marines there, and there ain't nothing going on.
Right. There's nothing going on, and they didn't even prepare for it. They were sleeping on the floor. You
Yeah.
know, they were eating in taco stands. You know, I mean, it's this just shows you it's all for show, and they're just flying by the seat of their pants. They don't plan things out. They don't know how to. Everybody who's in the Trump administration is an amateur idiot. They all are.
Well, and like I was saying, it's great to have laws and norms and all this stuff, but if none of it can be enforced, what's the fucking point? People talk about rule of law. As far as I'm concerned, there is no rule of law.
At this
Why should
point,
anybody follow any law?
at this point, it's kind of like whatever I want to do. That is what, and we really need to take a look at all of our institutions when this is done with, if it is, we need to start closing some of these loopholes.
Yeah.
We need to well, number one, we need to impeach John Roberts and get him out of the Supreme Court because his decisions, the decision he wrote about presidential power is an aberration. This is something that should not stand.
Right.
It is not a legitimate opinion, as many of the others that they have written. They just are not. They're pulling these things out of their wazoo. You know, there
Yeah.
is no rule of law involved.
I had a theory about this, the Supreme Court. Let's see what you think about this. Um, and it's a different theory that most people don't have. Um, but people say term limits and age limits and elect them or don't elect them. If you really want a fair and decent court that deals with rule of law, if you left it at 9 members of the Supreme Court and you made it mandatory that 4 were liberal and 4 were conservative, no matter who was in office, if you had to replace one, if it's a conservative judge, you got to replace them with a conservative judge. And presumably the Supreme Court justice would be kind of in the middle. I don't know how you determine that. But that's the only way you get fair judgments out of the Supreme Court. The intention is to keep partisanship out of the Supreme Court. Well, that's out the fucking window. They went off the rails. It is all partisan. And this is the one thing they wanted to appoint people for a lifetime because they didn't want to be political. Well, it's fucking political. So we got to find a way where it's not political or just not have a Supreme Court.
Well, I think we can have a Supreme Court. My answer would to be their decisions have to be unanimous.
Yeah,
Either if they cannot reach a unanimous decision, they cannot issue a ruling. It
that's an excellent,
must
excellent
it
idea.
must be unanimous. And also, I think you could. It's been. I think Bernie Sanders or someone proposed a thing where uh, each president gets to appoint 3 because of the way the road you create a rotation so that each president gets to appoint 3 during their term, or 2 terms, whatever. That makes sense to me too. So you have more of a rotation going, but that and a unanimous decision, because quite frankly, if you're winning by 1 vote, if a decision, an important decision, is just by one vote, that don't wash with me. You got to have the debate. You got to have the compromise. Make it a unanimous decision or no decision.
Well, and speaking of judges, we've got this whole situation with Emile Bove, who was a prosecutor.
Mhm.
Uh,
Just got fired.
he, he's
Oh no, no,
well,
that one, yeah,
no, the
okay,
one that they're trying to make a lifetime federal judge,
yeah.
and the Republicans are just trying to run roughshod over this. They
Mhm.
were in a judicial committee meeting,
Mhm.
and they were breaking the rules of
Yeah,
the committee, and the Democrats just walked out. That didn't do anything because they're still going to vote him in. But
yeah.
you would think the embarrassment of being exposed, like Chuck Grassley saying, they're saying, I don't know what you're about. You were a normal, decent human being, and now you're breaking rules for Donald Trump. What the fuck is he saying to you? That's what um, Booker said. Um, these people are not following any norms or rules. It's not just Donald Trump, it's the Republicans as a whole. And the Democrats continue to try to be normal and do what's right. And it's just not working.
No, I mean, and we have to get past that. We have to be able to say, suspend the rules of the Senate in some way so that they can't do anything.
Right.
I mean, Cory Booker did it with for a little while with it was his mini
Filibuster.
filibuster and stuff like that. But you gotta fight back. If they're going to break the rules, you break the rules until you can reach some sort of compromise where you start to function again. But I blame the 2025 project, all of that stuff. This idea that you are going to run roughshod over the Constitution, which is what they're doing
Yeah.
um, quite frequently. I mean, it was never the presidential power that they're trying to exert. The Supreme Court is trying to exert is not in the Constitution. We do not see that. We see an executive with limited power, a co-equal branch of government with Congress and the courts, but they are giving him their power. Congress, the Republicans in Congress and the Republicans in the Supreme Court are selling out their branch of government and giving their power to the chief executive, which is essentially empowering an authoritarian dictatorship, the very opposite of what the country was founded on.
What do you think happens to the Supreme Court and to the Republicans in the House and the Senate if Donald Trump keels over for whatever reason? Fingers
Well,
crossed.
yeah, well, obviously, his vice president ascends, and then they vote in somebody else as vice president. He will not command the loyalty. Vance will not
No.
command the loyalty that Trump did. Trump, I think, I don't know if he's because he had Putin's backing in the beginning and may still do. I mean, their public tiff maybe just for show, um, but I think Trump was given a lot of opposition research on the Republicans. We know that Putin stole it because he stole the Democrats too. They revealed the Democrats to hurt Hillary and others, but they never did anything with the Republican information that they stole. I think they gave it to
Yet.
Donald Trump, and he uses as blackmail against various figures in both the Supreme Court and in the Senate and the House. I think he's got the goods on him, and he threatens to expose them if they do not go along his way. I really believe that's what's going on. He's a mafia figure. He was taught by a mafia figure. So why would he not operate that way?
I see Donald Trump as like a crazy ex girlfriend or boyfriend. You break up with them, you don't want any part of them, but you walk lightly because you don't know what kind of crazy shit they do because Donald Trump is a wild card.
Yeah,
He'll say fucking anything, as
yeah.
clearly we've seen. And I think a lot of these Republicans are absolutely terrified. They're terrified of the primaries and stuff like that. But I think it's got to be more than that. You don't if you're terrified of primaries because you won't get reelected, why do you do things that Donald Trump tells you that won't get you reelected? There's
Mhm.
something more than the election, And this is why we see people, retiring and resigning from the thing because they just don't want to fuck with this shit anymore as long as Donald Trump is there.
Well, let's jump back to the media for a minute. They are things that are obvious to you and me. For example, um, the when you have was it the labor secretary who was saying we're not worried about the field workers and so forth that we're deporting
Right.
because we have all these people getting Medicaid that will take those jobs in order to get Medicaid, which is
Yeah,
incredible bullshit because
it is.
most of the people getting Medicaid are children, women with children, people who cannot work or on any circumstances because they're in wheelchairs in nursing homes or somehow or other impacted health wise, or they already work two jobs.
Right.
This is what's going on with Medicaid recipients, but yet they're putting that out there. That should be the lead headline in every news broadcast that evening: is this is bullshit. This is bullshit, and this is why this is bullshit. If that is not happening, that means your corporate media is ignoring it, and it's because they are in on it.
Now, when they passed this big, beautiful bill, they set out a lot of things to go beyond 2026. Is trying to game the system and
Yes,
not let people be injured too badly um,
before the
before the election,
midterms. Yeah,
before the midterms. I personally think with all the other stuff going on and some of the things that are going to come to pass, that's still going to fly in their face because as long as they keep it in the narrative that this is coming and this is what's happening, it's still going to work against them. But this is what the Republicans do all the time. They did it with the tax cuts.
yeah,
Everybody during Biden's administration were blamed for the tax cuts. They were Donald Trump's tax cuts. He just put them
exactly.
out a ways. What do you think happens with the midterms? Do you think there's enough other stuff that's going so badly that whether they put the Medicaid after 2026 or not, it doesn't make a difference?
Well, the Democrats have to keep, and whatever media outlets they still have influence on, have to keep hammering. This is coming. This is coming. It's been passed. It's going to happen after the midterms. Elect us, and we'll try to stop it. Okay, that should be what they're going after. This is a flood. This is a tsunami coming at you that if you vote for us, we can stop. And then they have to do it, of course. They have to get the numbers. They have to invest. They have to do whatever the Democrats I'm talking about have to do whatever they do, and they can't stop about it. They can't make it about anything else. It has to be about the harm that the Republicans' big, beautiful bill is going to do. I'll give you an example. You were talking about the Trump tax cuts. Okay. Well, for rich people and corporations, they were indeed tax cuts. But for you and me and everyone else, they were actually tax increases, just disguised as tax cuts to begin with. They took away like mortgage interest and stuff like that and gave us a slightly bigger standard deduction and so forth. But then every 2 years they raised that over 10 years, so we're actually paying more taxes than we got before the tax cut. That's
Right.
what the media needs to be explaining to people. Trump didn't give you a tax cut. He gave you a tax increase if you made less than what, $400,000 a year or something. I'm not sure of the exact figure. But now, and with his new tax bill, uh, the poorest of the poor are going to be paying far more in taxes. All of that bullshit about tax, about tips and so forth, that is a tax deduction that you have to file for, and you have to itemize and so forth in order for it to work. And nobody's going to do that, and they will still lose anyway. So it's all bullshit, and that's what the media needs to be explaining to people. Unfortunately, it ain't sexy, and they don't do it. And some of them aren't capable of doing it because they don't understand it. And they think, okay, we can't take 5 minutes of the news to explain this. We'll show you a flood or a plane crash or something like that. This is where the media is culpable.
Well, yeah, they are culpable, and the fortunate thing is that the Epstein thing is salacious enough that they do have an interest in that. So that
Exactly.
does work. So maybe we should learn a lesson from that. Is what I said before.
Mhm.
You can talk about tax cuts, you can talk about ICE, you can talk about all this stuff. but doesn't go very far. You need to constantly be bringing out those things that embarrass Donald Trump, that are sexy and salacious, so we keep it in the news cycle. And, that's the one mistake the Democrats made on November 5th. And I didn't disagree with them at the time. Donald Trump was so horrible that they continued to point out how horrible he was, and that wasn't enough to win the election. They really need to focus on the problems in this country, the younger people who don't make enough money, who are saddled with huge loans. You've got to tell them what the problem is and what they're going to do to fix it and how they're going to fix it. And then, like you said, they actually need to do that, because the Democrats tend to fall short when they make promises.
Yeah, and this is the thing. The biggest thing that the Republicans have managed to do, and the biggest, let me put it this way, one of the biggest things that Roosevelt was able to do was to have the average person start to be able to create wealth. And the way they did that mainly was to be able to purchase a home that increased in value,
Right.
that they built equity in a home. And then they were able to pass that money on to their children. They were able to use that to go to college, to increase their standard of living, and so forth. That was always the mechanism, to be able to purchase a home that would increase in value. Now they can't do that. Homes cost too much. They don't make enough money. So the home ownership, which is the linchpin of American prosperity for the middle and lower classes, is quite simply being denied. It's being taken away. It's being taken away by the Republican Party and corporate interests and rich people, billionaires in particular, which should not exist. I'm sorry, they just shouldn't. You know, when they get close to a billion, you start taxing 100%. Okay, give them a carrot and a stick. Reinvest it. We'll let you keep more. Okay, open some factories. If you want to bring manufacturing back, tax the billionaires. That's the way it will work.
There's something you talked about before that's starting to hit home with me a little bit. How hedge funds and stuff are
Mm-hmm.
buying property, whether it be apartment buildings or homes or that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. The reason it hits home with me is because my son and my daughter-in-law just had a new baby, and we have my 5-year-old granddaughter. They're looking to buy a house. They have a good income. They have great credit. Everything, they've got everything in line. They both have great jobs. No problems at all. But they've missed out. They've above, made these offers above the asking price on at least 3 or 4 occasions, and they've lost out to somebody who's coming in with all cash.
Yeah. And
Who
where are
comes
they?
in with how is that
Exactly.
possible on a $500,000 house?
It's not. It's not. I mean, these are hedge funds, or equity firms, private equity, whatever you, one or the other or both. That's where the money's coming from. And then what they will do, that $500,000 home, they'll just knock it down and build $1 million home. They've doubled their money.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. We're coming to the end here. I had one last question I wanted to ask you about, because it's something that happened yesterday. Donald Trump fired another prosecutor from the Southern
Yes.
District of New York, I think. Her name is Maureen Comey.
Hmm.
Now, people will say, well, she's former FBI Director Comey's daughter. Maybe that's why he did it. And
Probably
I don't
something to
think,
do with it, but it's not
maybe
everything.
some, no, it's not everything, because he could have done that 6 months ago,
Right.
but he didn't. Um, she also was a main prosecutor on the Jeffrey Epstein thing,
Exactly.
which makes it more interesting. But doesn't that seem like a stupid move?
Of
You've
course it
got some
does.
you've got somebody who prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein. There's probably nobody that knows more about Jeffrey Epstein's case than this woman. So you fire her because you're trying to be mean and show how tough you are, but
You
you're
just
cutting her
unleashed her.
loose.
You
You
just
unleashed
unleashed
her.
her. Yeah.
And
She can
some
now
people
speak
say,
about it. She could not have spoken about that while she was still working.
well, and that's the thing. People say, well, she obviously has an NDA.
Mm.
I don't know.
No, no, no. She is free. And that is this is another thing. Somebody today released a list of cowards, people who should be speaking out and who aren't.
Yeah,
One of them was George W. Bush.
absolutely.
That's one. Dick Cheney already is to a certain extent, but he should be doing more. Liz Cheney certainly is. But all of those generals that he clashed with the last time around, they should be talking. They should be telling their truth. Where are they? Why aren't they? Mark Milley, come on. Don't be a coward. Step up. You're supposed to be a
Well,
big deal soldier. Act like one.
well, and it's not about taking down Donald Trump. It's about the security and safety of this
Exactly.
country. And isn't that
Exactly.
the oath you fucking signed on for?
Exactly. We all know that Trump colluded with Putin and still is, even though they're pretending to be enemies now. Or maybe Trump is just crazy enough that he's turned. I do think though that it's mostly for show in some way or other. I don't know unless he really is losing it, which is a possibility. I mean, losing it more.
Well,
But
I don't know that he's losing it. It's just his personality. He tells somebody he wants them to do something, and when they don't, and clearly Putin is playing him, then he tries to figure out how to get it done. So he threatens them or puts pressure on them. And so he's
mhm,
talking to Zelensky. Can you hit Moscow with missiles? And Zelensky says, yeah, if you give us the missiles. And
yeah,
he's hoping so uh, uh, Putin hears this and goes, oh my God, he's going to do that. So I better get and give Donald Trump what he wants. That works fine in corporate America. That works fine with your family, but not with Vladimir Putin.
mhm,
This is just how he behaves. There is no strategy to it. He doesn't get what he wants, so he threatens. And it doesn't matter. I mean, he turns on people so fucking fast. I
oh
mean, he
yeah,
was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and recently he called him a creep.
yeah, mhm,
So
yeah,
Donald Trump,
exactly.
anybody who does something he doesn't want, he will turn on them instantly. That's what narcissists do. If you're a threat to me, I'm coming after you. And he thinks he can pull that off with Putin. He can't.
Right. Let me throw this in real quick before we go because it's been on my mind. And that is, remember when Eisenhower left office, he did a speech warning about the military-industrial complex.
Right,
The
right.
idea that this would be a problem in the future because it would be sucking money out of the treasury, and it's true, it still is. I mean, it has gotten to the point now where the U.S. military and let's call it that. Let's call it the military industrial complex. The military and the defense corporations and so forth are nothing but a sponge to suck money out of the general funds of the tax money and transfer it to billionaires who own the companies. That's all it
Right,
is.
right.
They propose these weapons programs and things that they know that will never come to fruition. They're just there to suck money. Okay. We have to get a handle on the defense budget. We always talk about cutting it. They talk about cutting Doge, for example. We're going to find fraud and waste. Well, they went to the wrong place. All they had to do was go to the Department of Defense, and they could have
Absolutely.
balanced the budget in a day. Just gone in and cut the waste and fraud. And they could have balanced the budget in a day and funded Social Security for the next 300 years and schools and everything else because that is the mechanism for transferring money from our pockets into the pockets of billionaires. The number one way to do it. The Defense Department and the defense establishment is nothing. Nobody's going to attack us. We've got nuclear weapons, and that is stymies everything else. Okay,
Ab- Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
that is,
I'm gonna wrap things up, but Ed, thank you very much. I mean,
you bet.
you take old guys like us, between us, we've got 140 years of life,
Yeah.
and you go more than an hour and a half. They ain't much left.
No, I got to get out. I got to hit the bathroom pretty quick too.
Me too. Me too. Well, Ed, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the next time we talk. I know people love to hear from you. Check the comments in YouTube because there'll be people making comments. But thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Mike. Good to talk to you again.
All right. And those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.